Hey everyone, welcome back to Coding Temple's Agile Leaders, where we help you develop the skills and strategies to increase velocity and innovation in growing organizations. I'm your host, Evan Shai. Today we are joined by Alan Todd, who is a successful podcast host with Leading Up Podcast, which recently was named #1 in business, #1 in management, and 17 overall on Apple Podcasts. So congratulations, Alan. Really impressive. But Alan is also a successful entrepreneur who has 3 successful exits under his belt in the EdTech space, who is now vice president at Udemy post the acquisition of his startup CorpU in 2021. Alan is truly a wealth of information for any leader looking to change the world. Thank you so much for being here with us, Alan.
All right, Evan, thank you so much for having me.
Well, Alan, I'm a little bit familiar with your background, but would love if you could share with our audience just a little bit about your story from KnowledgeSoft to your current role at Udemy.
Yeah. So the simple story is I was a senior in college in late 1986, and I took a course called Introduction to Microcomputer. And it's odd, but that's what they called a PC back then. It was the microcomputer. And the professor, who was a COBOL professor, had no idea how to teach us how to use it. So I spent 13 or 14 weeks just playing with a PC. And back then it was an IBM 5150. It had 256K of RAM, and you had a floppy disk, and you booted up with MS-DOS. And then we had one piece of software. It was Lotus 123. So I played with it. The teacher had no idea. Like I said, it was like, there's nothing going on here. And I thought that was cool. And I was an average student, so I didn't think much of college. I didn't care, but I got out and got done. And I started immediately at 22, helping people to learn how to use personal computers. And I saw that I thought was the beginning of a wave. And so over the next 10 years, say from 22 to 32, I built up a bunch of tech boot camps, and we were doing Novell networking and databases, and the world was getting the Microsoft Office suite was coming out during that period. Windows came out during that period. So built up these tech boot camps, and it was a great business. I bootstrapped, had a lot of fun, and learned a lot about myself and bootstrapping and education and the passion for watching people learn and get better and how cool that was. And we built a piece of software in the midst of KnowledgeSoft. The browser was invented by Netscape at that time. And we'd been doing these courses on networking and TCP/IP, and the internet was just starting. So we're like, okay, let's play with the browser. I'm like, this is going to revolutionize software, because software at the time was on you had to install software application on every desk. So if you went into a big company with software, you had to install it 1,000 times on 1,000 different machines back then. So anyway, we built something that came to be known as the learning management system. I think we were the first. But what was interesting about that is Gartner, Gartner invested and convinced me to sell the bootcamp business and spin out the software company. So we sold KnowledgeSoft. My brother worked at the company. The company was acquired by Randstad, which is a large IT staffing, tech skills company all over the world. They're still there and is still in the same building that we had KnowledgeSoft. Anyway, so then Knowledge Planet learning management system via a browser. We built that into a sizable company that now we're into the late 90s, right around 2000, the .com bubble burst. We survived, lived to fight another day. And then Knowledge Planet ultimately got acquired by a private equity group that wanted to merge it with other companies and create a social business software category. At that exit, like the first, I told them, it's great, but I'm not going to come along with it. So when we sold the tech bootcamp business, we made the deal that I wouldn't be going. We had a great management team. Like I said, they're still in place. Decades later, it evolved, obviously. And then Knowledge Planet, we did the same thing, got acquired. And I had a non-compete period. So I went to graduate school, had an epiphany there that became the genesis of CorpU, which was to deliver executive education online at the time. If you looked at all online education, none of it was done online. So you did tech skills online, which we pioneered a lot of that with Knowledge Planet. But CorpU is, look, everybody's doing tech skills online, but nobody's doing leadership and exec ed. So we did that. So if you think of the common thread, they just all hung together and evolved. In the common thread, of course, was there were major waves. So catching the PC wave, catching with Knowledge Plant, the internet wave. And then I think with CorpU, it was more of, we got to this, finally, this read, write web. We got to the point where we could stream video fast enough and build high quality, high fidelity learning that we were right there when that happened. So that's the story of those three businesses. And then CorpU in 2021 was acquired by Udemy, and we've rebranded it in the last 12 months as Udemy Business Leadership Academy. So I spend a lot of time thinking about that and evangelizing that, and running the Leading Up podcast with Udemy, which we've had some great success with, all thinking about strictly management and leadership development. What do the great ones do, and how do they change the world, and how do they make a difference, and what do the bad ones do, and what do they do wrong, and what damage do they cause?
So it sounds like in the previous startups, and we're eager to move on to the next opportunity, but at CorpU and Udemy stayed on board to continue executing towards the vision. Was there any particular insight or reasoning behind doing that, or just the nature of the partnership?
I think the way this came about, the CEO of Udemy, Greg Brown, who is a good friend, we've built a great relationship over the last several years. He just said, we really would like you to come along with this for some period of time to help us build a leadership development capability inside Udemy that we don't have, and help us build this broader premium offering, cohort learning, leadership, executive education, and help us build that capability internally, integrate CorpU into Udemy so that we're fitting into these bigger functions in sales and customer success. And I agreed to do it. And as time has passed, we've brought in people, new managers and leaders. And so the podcast is something that I'm really enjoying, and evangelizing the product I'm really enjoying as part of my commitment to Udemy to making this thing successful.
You've been able to successfully identify waves and build products and execute in a way that is able to ride that wave, if you will. What skills broadly do you think have been most impactful to the success that you've had throughout your career and across these different experiences?
There's a couple different skills. I would say I'd love to say the most important is being a maniacal reader and learner. And that's true. But right up there with it, for me, in my story, and this may not be true for everybody, but is perseverance, and intense perseverance. Because in all three companies, we faced existential crisis. We faced disaster, right? I have never found an easy way. I've never found a shortcut that has ever worked. And I've had a lot of people on the podcast and studied leadership for a lot of years, and I have yet to run into one. Maybe people write books about it, but I haven't met them. But the ones I talk to, they all say, yeah, that's my story too. Nobody has ever said it was easy. So perseverance, but ultimately, like Charles Munger said of Warren Buffett, we built the world's most powerful investment, or most profitable, highest returning investment company in the history of the world. And we did it because Warren was a learning machine. And Charlie Munger said, because I tried to go to bed a little bit wiser each night than I was the day before. And both of them talk about the story of compound interest being the eighth greatest wonder of the world. But what they also talk about is compounding of knowledge. So just a tiny bit smarter each night when you go to bed. Go do that every day for 30 or 40 years. These guys have had 60-year careers. So that knowledge is compounding into everything. I would say that is what has worked for me. So reading, learn it all, and perseverance. You just can't give up. You're going to come to brushes with death. Everybody does. And that's when you double down, and you got to go harder.
I love that. I certainly can relate with, I'm a voracious reader. And one of the other things that I think I've appreciated at this point in my career that I didn't fully appreciate 5-10 years ago is just the realization that what I work on and who I work with is far more crucial than just the number of hours that I put in. And it's going to require a lot of hard work no matter what. And I'm really good at that part of the equation.
Yeah.
If you're working with the wrong people on the wrong thing, it's like you could work day and night and not achieve what you're ultimately after. It's like sometimes being patient to find the right opportunity, the right tailwinds, collaborating with the right people, look for operational leverage can be really essential factors in achieving meaningful and impactful outcomes. Was there anything that you can point to aside from these kind of first principles that has tactically allowed you to be more efficient in how you get to these successful outcomes in each respective venture?
Yeah. First off, Evan, congratulations for having the wisdom of a 50 something without having to live 50 years, because everything you just said about working on the right things and the right people, I absolutely agree with you. I don't believe that my younger self was smart enough to know that, but my current wiser self absolutely knows that's about the most important thing you can do, because it's very easy to fill your schedule or your time and feel like you're doing things by doing a lot of work. And I have found, and this is true of Warren Buffett again, and Charlie Munger and Bill Gates and others, that reading and thinking and reflecting are the skills you want to build, the habits you want to build that enable you to answer the question every day: what should I be doing today? What's the highest and best use of my time? With whom should I work? With whom should I distance myself and not work? And that takes a lot of thoughtful introspection. So I would say, first and foremost, congratulations to you for figuring that out. I think it's spot on. Now, having said all that, I forgot your question.
Yeah, no, I think you actually you hit on it, but I think, you know, is there anything that like tactically when you're considering new business or product opportunities that you think about or try to optimize for? And again, maybe we just touched on some of them, but is there anything else that you try to do to drive towards a successful outcome more efficiently and or experience less pain on the way there? And what?
So I'll tell you how I come to that. And I think it's been true for me with each company, and they don't come easy. But when
Yeah.
I come to a vision or a belief, I build a deeply held belief. And then I have unlimited stores of passion and energy in my belief. So in each of the 3 companies I started, I was so passionate and so driven. And I know whatever I do next, it's not going to change, not even a little. The flame burning inside of me is brighter and hotter now than it's ever been in my life. It's that passion and that energy that attracts the right people, it magnetizes the right people to you and the right opportunities to you, and they come your way. And it's hard to imagine that's true if it hasn't happened to you. But I'm telling you it's true, and I know it's happened to me over and over again, and I'm certain it's happened to you, Evan. They're going, "Wait a minute, what is that?" I'm telling you, passion and belief. And in every company I started, I had a breakthrough because I found people to believe what I believe. And people that didn't go all in with me on believing in what I believe in and said, "We're going to go do this," they weren't around me very long. They came and maybe they quit, but for whatever reason, those aren't the ones. And the ones that believe became the investors, became the board members, became the employees, became the customers. And all of that stuff fell into place every time through that. I believe that deeply. So my most tactical skills, other than the learning and reading skills, is passion and energy and deeply held belief and conviction in whatever I'm going after. So if I say I'm going to build executive education, we're going to do it online, I'm going to do it the highest quality way it can be done anywhere in the world. And I was unstoppable in my belief to convince the CEO of Walmart to be on our platform, the CEO of Agilent to be on our platform, to get Coke and Pepsi and McDonald's on our platform at the C-suite level. I had spent 20 years in 2 prior companies dealing with people that were like learning managers, director, like there was no C-suite. They were mythical people I never heard of. I couldn't only dream of it. And we built CorpU to say, we're going to get to that group of people. And we got to that group of people. And by the way, that was a group of people that wanted nothing to do with online education. The answer was, we're not shopping on price. This is executive education. When we get the top 20 people together, I don't care if it's $30,000 for a day and you could do it for 5. I'm not trying to save money. I'm trying to maximize business impact. with my people. And what that meant is they just didn't believe in the power of online. That has changed.
I'm assuming, and based on the context you provided prior, you didn't necessarily have those relationships
Absolutely
when
not.
you had those opportunities. How did you get in those rooms?
So it's like compound interest building up
Yeah.
over time. I said that about knowledge. We just focused on building the best product we could build. And we had this mantra about partnering with the chief learning officer, and we used to call it to anybody in learning, take me to your leader. So we'd get in on a call and say, ultimately, what are we doing a leadership program for? Let's get the leader involved. Who's the business leader? Who's the chief? Who's the champion of this initiative? And we just kept climbing up that ladder. I remember getting to the division president. He recommended to his peers 2 other division presidents. We had 3 division presidents, and all I wanted was Mike McMullen because he's the CEO. We couldn't get to him. But when you slowly get the learning people, so we got the CLO to like us, then we got the CHRO to like us, then we got a division president, gave him a great win. He actually did a video case study for his testimonial. Then we had other division presidents, then we got the CEO, and they all became believers in, oh my gosh, it's a better, faster, cheaper way, right? I can drive speed, I can drive scale, I can do leadership, I can build strategy and innovation and get people aligned on a plan, and I can do it really fast digitally with a professional way to think about it and do it and scale it and create the same kind of impact. In fact, I would argue create better impact because if you did this stuff face to face, besides the fact that you have to spend 10 times more money, you have to spend 10 times the amount of time planning it. And they were all done face to face. It was 100% face to face 10 or 12 years ago in leadership, 100%. And so anyway, it was a matter of laddering up and constantly focus on delivering the highest impact learning outcomes that we possibly could for every constituent. And we solved for that every single day. We shared magic moments every single day of any learners that had like breakthrough learning outcomes, life changing outcomes. And we had them every day, like gushers of them every single day at CorpU. And we had somebody who teased them out every day and just shared them in an email. And we got every single day you got emails of these incredible magic moments. So just doing that motivates everybody. And we just kept getting better. And it was like a virtuous cycle of success feeds success. And eventually we got to these senior leaders and we became credible. We were able to compete against even the schools that we partner with, but we competed against the big consulting companies too. We built a little company with 50 people was competing against multi-billion-dollar McKinseys of the world and getting, a project, a leadership project from McDonald's instead of McKinsey. And that was routine. We were getting that all the time.
Gosh, I love that. It's so important for our audience to hear that. And any founders, product leaders, sales leaders out there, it sounds like you had a clear vision. And unfortunately, I know a couple of people now that have worked with you and consistently and profusely communicate how inspirational and motivating you are as a leader. So what you're articulating here is certainly reflected in people's commentary. So you have this vision. You turn that vision into, you bring the right people on board, you turn that into a product, obsessing over a product that is going to deliver this value proposition that is orders of magnitude better than other things in the market. But then even still, you have this resistance in the market in terms of maybe believability, right? Some inherent bias or perspective that prospective customers ultimately have of these types of products and not believing that type of impact can be made. But you were able to get enough believers on board to start to prove out or demonstrate evidence of that value and then started layering up or laddering up from there. Is that a fair kind of cycle or articulation?
Absolutely. I'd say
Okay.
the lesson from that is there's a great book I read early in my career called Crossing the Chasm by Jeffrey Moore. And it lays out a very simple thing. Actually, the whole concept that he writes about was actually a business school thing written 50 years before him. But it's essentially when we were selling online exec ed, you had to find early adopters. I didn't want to sell to skeptics. If somebody goes, prove to me it's better than face to face, I'm like, no, if you don't want to experiment, you don't want to try it and you need it to be proven. I don't have any proof, right? You're going to have to believe. And if what I'll do is you do proof of concept and I'll prove speed, scale, and impact that'll blow your mind. But you're going to have to take some risk. We don't have any customers. Let's say it was brand new. And in the early days, it was hard fighting to win. And that evident in your business, anybody if you're entering any new segment, You've got to find early adopters. If you find those late market buyers, those laggards, you walk into their office or you're on their Zoom call and you're not feeling the love and the sparks aren't flying, you're probably not going to sell them anything. And you're going to waste a lot of time trying to convert them. And I always said, let's preach to the converted. I want to find people who, right, think what we think, believe what we believe, feel what we feel. And we want to find them. And maybe it was only one out of every 20. Then we got to go talk to 20 people to find the one. And we're going to sell something to that one and create something great together. And they're going to be the innovators that are going to willing to take a risk. And chief learning officers are risk averse by nature, right? They're in an overhead position. They're not the swashbuckling sales leader revenue generator. They're in this position. So asking them to take a risk of their entire reputation to go sponsor some leadership development in front of their bosses and C-suite who are all going to look at this, it was hard to do in the early days with a risk averse buyer and a risky proposition with no proof points in the marketplace. And we had to create a market. So we had to create a need, not fill a need. There was no need for our product.
Love it. All three of your businesses have been in the learning space broadly. What drives this palpable passion that you have for leadership development, professional development, and has that evolved over the years?
Yeah, so I didn't know it at the time, but I stumbled in, like I said, to teaching people how to use computers. I stumbled into becoming a Novell certified network instructor. Now I'm teaching people how to put in giant networks for big companies. And I had a company and I hired some people to do that. And I became a manager. And I watched the successes. And I actually started on the side teaching the Dale Carnegie course because I heard like the gods of business. Warren Buffett took it, said it was the best thing that ever happened to him. And Lee Iacocca, who had a famous business book when I got out of college, he was the guy that famously saved Chrysler and swashbuckling CEO. And they loved that Dale Carnegie course. So I took it and it was the best thing I ever did because I learned a bunch of soft skills to match with my tech skills. So I learned something but what came out of all of it is a passion for learning and a passion for being in the teaching business. Your business changes lives, Evan. So you train people, they make more money, they have a better life, they're a better partner, they provide for their family. All of those things come out of Coding Temple, right? And you know it, you see it every day, and your employees feel it. And that's why you do what you do. But I got to feel that at KnowledgeSoft. I felt it at Knowledge Planet. And I felt it even more at CorpU to the point where I've evolved my thinking to I've done a lot of reflecting on what's my purpose in life and why am I here? And I work with professors who write books on purpose and finding your purpose and discovering it and developing a purpose and building a purpose-driven organization, et cetera. And mine has been the passionate pursuit of wisdom and creating shared prosperity through teaching and learning, the art of teaching and the science of learning and the magic of wisdom and watching them come together. So in every business, I've just seen people's lives change and flourish and become happier and healthier. And like even our positive leadership programs, people are like, it's just life altering. We've had stories of people that were in really bad places in the world, ultimate lows in very sad places, come out of it with the right positive leadership, positive psychology, and it changed their life. And when I see that every day of my life, I'm like, man, I just want to do that for the rest of my life. I want to create that for more people. And that brings me joy. And we're happiest when we serve others. And I think for me, it has become a calling and it's taken a while to figure it all out. But that's why I exist in this world. It's my calling. It's my life. It's my passion. It's what I do. It's what I do on Saturday and Sunday. It's what I think about when I'm not hanging with the kids, the wife. I'm thinking about this and they all know it and all my kids know it and my friends know it.
Whether or not it took you long to recognize it or articulate it, you've been living it your entire career. Similarly, I am here to help others self-actualize their potential, and whether or not I intentionally chose my various career paths, that's what I was doing in effect at every business I've started.
Yeah.
So I certainly can relate. You've pioneered a lot of things across the learning experience with how we learn, how we manage learning systems, et cetera. At CorpU, you really pioneered cohort-based learning for management and leadership. What was that initial insight? And has your belief in that as a learning methodology or modality, has that changed or evolved over the years?
I was in graduate school at the University of Pennsylvania. I had this joint program taught by the Wharton School and the Graduate School of Education. And I had a professor, Stanton Wortham. He is now the dean of the Graduate School of Education at Boston College and a good friend. But he taught a course on learning theories. And of the three theories that we learn, behaviorism, right? So carrots and sticks, and you learn a behaviorism. If you look at any compliance training in corporate America, the theory in use, whether people know it or not, is a behaviors theory, right? There's rewards there's mostly punishment for not doing it. It's the way we train animals, as we say. We use behaviorism, train animals. And a lot of corporate learning is behaviorist in nature, which is we're using a theory that works great on animals. And it shows you, I don't think it's a great idea for humans, but companies do it and governments do it and they mandate, and it creates compliant behavior, but not committed behavior. The second theory was cognitivism. So Jean Piaget championed a different set of thinking, but it would be more about, in a cognitivist view, creating an eager one inside a person and getting the person to pursue learning for reasons that no carrots or sticks, just that get them to want to do it. But the third theory was sociocultural theory by Lev Vygotsky, a Russian psychologist. He posited the sociocultural theory of how people and organizations learn. It essentially says we learn best when we engage in a range of things with a range of others in things. And all of our learning are channels to the brain through our senses. So we learn from others, we watch them, we think about them. That theory I was learning that at the time that Facebook was becoming popular, coming out of a .edu only solution to becoming a commercial solution. And I reflected on at Knowledge Planet on the learning platform, and everyone wanted shorter courses. If it was an hour, they wanted 30 minutes. 30 minutes, they wanted 10. They just wanted, give me a 5-minute course. We used to call it 5-minute apps. Everybody wanted the shortest thing they could get. And here's Facebook voluntarily getting people to sit online for 4 hours. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy. So I'm learning sociocultural theory, which had, by the way, a complete renaissance. When I learned it, it was barely used. You look at the Google tracking on it, it's now, even in the journals of learning science, nobody was using sociocultural theory in like 08, 09. By like 2020, they came out with a new update of the book, How People Learn. And I counted, I think it was 52 times they used the word sociocultural in that book. But the point is, look at the magic of the connecting people to content. Is hard for people to stay focused, but connecting people to people is magic. It's human. It's this feeling. It's this experience. And then use content as a lens through which you can talk about real work or try stuff or whatever. It is the magic. And so I have not lost any faith in it. In fact, my beliefs are more deeply held than ever because I live even inside Udemy. We have 70 million learners on the platform. And I look at on the Udemy on-demand learning, and I'll still say when we connect people to people, we do cohort-based learning, we can 10x the factors of engagement. We can 10x the persistence, the completion, the ability to try something and apply to get a result, and the ability to actually have a positive result, which comes to those who have to persist and try. And if we look at the research from Robert Brinkerhoff, Dr. Robert Brinkerhoff has written a lot of books on learning measurement and the success case method and high impact learning. And he basically says, look, most people don't complete a course. And for those that do complete, most don't apply anything. And for those that do apply, most have a short failure and give up. And so when you look at all these fall off rates, maybe 5% of the people benefit from a learning intervention and actually change something in their life. And I always ask people, like, think about in management practices, what have you learned that you actively have applied and made a behavior or skill that you apply every day? Most people can't name very many, despite reading a lot of books and stuff. Cohort-based learning, in my mind, is the most human form of learning. And as I think about AI and driving chatbots and all that, the one thing that I don't believe in is a more sort of autonomous, less human world. I just don't see how that's going to work. And I believe in all that stuff, but just give me a cohort, give me a group of people, get me some friends to do it together. Why do you think CrossFit works? My wife is really good at going to the gym because she goes to these specific Pilates classes and knows the teachers and knows the different people that go to the different ones. And it's that sociocultural experience that creates it. And I say, if I have to go to the gym by myself, I'll skip it or I'll sleep in or I won't do it. It's no different with Weight Watchers, CrossFit. Alcoholics Anonymous, AA, is one of the greatest behavior change systems that's ever been invented. It has defied psychology for 50 years, or I don't know how old it is, 75 years, but it's all about connecting people to people. All of those things have that, and they are efficacious. They work, they create great outcomes in any other way than with lots of other people. Now you do learn. It's like reading a book and you can do the
Sure.
videos, but you have to reflect on that with others and talk. And that's where the magic comes.
Totally with you. I think AI has a lot of promise in terms of personalizing the learner journey, but to the extent that we're trying to develop skills that we want to use in the wild, in an unstructured environment, it's going to require consistent application. And I think consistency requires accountability. And although we can hold ourselves accountable, I think optimizing for accountability requires a social context with people whose opinion matters to you. And although I think learning in isolation, growth is linear, but exchanging ideas with other people's perspectives and life experiences, growth becomes exponential. Cohort-based social learning versus purely asynchronous autonomous types of learning. When you think about your own learning and development, it seems like you've had a strong balance of both learning in terms of extensive formal education. I think I saw master's and doctorate programs, in addition to experiential learning through your own ventures. When you think about your growth as a leader throughout your career, do you think that the formal kind of academic training or the experiential learning has had the biggest impact, to the extent that you can point to either?
Yeah, I would say experiential is how I'm mostly taught at everything, right? I'm a big fan of people who read books. Abraham Lincoln read books and became president and abolished slavery, right? The guy did it he became a lawyer by not going to law school. He read books. Elon Musk became a rocket scientist. You go, how did you do that? I read books. He didn't get a PhD in physics. He just read books and got his own PhD by reading books. So I would say that the School of Hard Knocks has always been my best teacher. And it was a great opportunity for me to finally connect theory to practice. So I had learned everything in practice. I learned finance, accounting. You'd think I was supposed to learn all that in college. I didn't learn any of that in college. I took courses on all that stuff, but forgot it as fast as I could and stayed up all night to pass a test just to get past it with no anything. But in real life, I actually loved every bit of it. Finance, accounting, income statements, balance sheets, cash flow, raising money and funds and cap tables and dilution and accretion and M&A, and did all that stuff and learned enormous amounts of things I still have and I keep learning. I became wiser, right? It taught me to be a better thinker. It taught me to be a social scientist, to think like a social scientist. So I was constantly thinking in research questions. And that's how I think about business, right? It's like research questions are a great way to think about everything. And the scientific method is essentially the way we teach management now with lean startups and any of the methodologies. They're essentially the scientific method, which is have a hypothesis, build something, throw it out, and iterate or learn from that, confirm or disconfirm the hypothesis, and throw something new out. So I think the balance was great. If you gave me the great education early, I would have wasted all of it. I wasn't ready. And so you have to be ready to learn and fill your brain and become wise. You have to be highly motivated. I was highly motivated. I didn't have anything else to do. And I was super excited to learn from brilliant professors at Wharton and Penn's Graduate School of Education. It was a tremendous experience. And I had no goal. A lot of my friends they all wanted to be chief learning officers. A lot of them are college professors at a bunch of different schools teaching leadership and enterprise learning. And I was like the only one in the class. Yeah, I'm not going to do any of those things, but good luck. I'm just here to learn as much as I possibly can. And I'm going to go start another company. I'm going to go keep pursuing my dreams and do stuff. But I'm wiser now. I learned a lot. It was highly valuable, but it was right place at the right time.
I love it. I didn't realize there was another common thread. I ended up going back to grad school to start a PhD program, and probably my 29, 30. So after I've had some professional experiences, and I think it was the perfect time where I really appreciated, went in focused, and leverage exactly what you're describing in terms of experimental design and all of those things. Although what I specifically studied wasn't directly applicable to the types of businesses that I launched necessarily after. The underlying principles about how to learn, how to approach big questions was rooted in that experience.
Yeah.
And very useful. When you think about, so you had some time there where you were able to make time to really prioritize your own learning and growth. We think about the leaders that all of us in all of our organizations are moving quickly towards a world that is going to require different skills than we necessarily have today. And some meaningful reskilling and upskilling is going to have to happen in these organizations. But it's challenging to do that in a fast-paced environment where you can't necessarily pause your roadmaps in order to go engage in this learning, or at least there's a lot of resistance in being able to do that. Is there any advice or best practices you would recommend for leaders to effectively guide their teams through some of these skill transformations that are impending?
Yeah, I think integrating it with work is the most important thing, right? So if you're thinking about, let's think about leadership skills, soft skills, durable skills, building these things that are arguably the most important things, right? You get hired for tech skills, you get fired for soft skills, is what they say, right? You're 10 times more likely to be fired for a soft skill violation than a technical skill violation. And I don't think leaders think enough of themselves as teachers. And I think it's a real gigantic missed opportunity. And so we've done a lot of research on this. Dave Ulrich at the University of Michigan did a lot of research on this. We were studying what great leaders in a hybrid world and how they do it. And becoming a coach was one of the most important things. Like, so I'm here, like, as your boss, I'm rooting for your success. I want to help you. What do you want to become? How can I help you get there? That's what a coach is helping to make you better. I'm trying to make you better. And when you ask a lot of people in surveys, "Does your boss help you make you better?" They're like, hell no, not at all. Maybe the opposite. In fact, most of the opinion surveys today from Gallup and others. So one easy thing to do is become a coach and then become a teacher. How do you become a teacher? How do you become a coach? First, start meetings, team meetings or one-on-ones and say, how you doing? How you feeling? How's life? What would make it better? What can I do to be helpful? Just start that. And a lot of people, I don't do that. We want to get to the agenda. No, stop getting to the agenda. Get to the human, touch their heart. So do that. That's the easiest thing you can do. Become more emotionally intelligent. But I also like the leader as teacher. We have to build some skills. All right, give everybody a pre-read before the meeting and maybe every other meeting, every third, maybe once a month. Let's just take everyone read this thing and let's take a half hour. And by the way, a lot of people won't do the pre-read. So what they do at Amazon, Jeff Bezos made everybody, we're going to sit for the first 10 minutes and read in dead silence. And we're going to read on camera. If we're in a room, great, but we're going to read and we're going to discuss and we're going to unpack and reflecting on your thoughts so that you can engage in dialogue. Dialogue comes from the Latin roots dialogos, which roughly translates into shared meaning flowing through a group. That's where we want to get. We want dialogue, shared meaning flowing through the team. Shared meaning about what? I don't know. Maybe it's about how we're going to treat each other. Maybe it's about how we're going to go faster. Maybe it's about how we're going to transform. Maybe it's how we're going to serve customers better. Maybe it's about the new strategy. Whatever it is, to engage in structured dialogue to build new skills that are critical. And that dialogue, by the way, that shared vision, shared meaning, shared belief pulls everyone along. It makes them feel like they belong. It makes them feel heard, right? These are the things that everybody says. I don't feel like I belong. I don't feel heard. I don't feel seen, right? So these are really simple things. Have your one-on-ones and ask people how they're doing and coach and be a force for good in their life. Have your team meetings. When you have team meetings, engage in dialogue, read something, and get everybody to talk about it and build a new skill one by one, strategy, innovation, change, customer service, whatever speed, whatever thing you want to, financial acumen. I don't care what it is, but do that in your meeting and the leader can be the teacher. Anybody have a passion for a topic they think we all need to learn? You become the team leader for a day. We'll do it 3 months from now. You go read the book, summarize it for us. We'll read the summary or read some book summary or article and spend time. I think those are simple examples, easy to do, and everybody could start doing them tomorrow.
Love it. It's like push-ups. They're simple, but they just work.
Yeah.
Sometimes, look,
Yep.
Alan, I could have a 3-hour podcast with you. You are an absolute wealth of information. You're inspirational. I'm leaving here more motivated than I was walking in. With all the success that you've achieved throughout your career, looking forward, what are you most excited about, and any ambitious goals for the next few years?
Let me start. That's a good question. I'm going to start by sounding really negative for a second. And the reason I'm going to sound negative is because this is where they taught me to be a social scientist, think like a social scientist. You have to ask a question. So what question? What is the burning question? And I would tell you the one that I don't have an answer to right now that I think leads to the next billion-dollar or trillion-dollar opportunity is what I know is that the human condition, particularly in advanced economies like America, is the worst it's ever been in my lifetime. I'm watching. You look at the CDC and you say that a majority of us are sick by their definition. You look at stress and people are stressed. 75% of people in a survey said that they had a debilitating form of stress at work within the last week. It's a famous SHRM survey, Society of Human Resource Management. So I know that we're sick. We know that lack of sleep, people don't get enough sleep. And we know lack of sleep makes you dumber, right? It makes our brain way worse. We know from loneliness, Vivek Murthy, our Surgeon General, says loneliness is an epidemic proportion. And being lonely, which it's growing because people are sitting on their phones, but being lonely is like equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And if you look at the Harvard longevity study, how do people live to be 100? They answered it 3 ways: relationships. That's the longest study on longevity, on lifespan that's ever been done. They've been doing it forever. I thought that was a pretty simple way to do it. So I know we're sick, we're tired, we're stressed, we're lonely, we're distracted, right? We're addicted to phones. You look at smartphone use and the number of usage, it's going up. And we've given everybody a supercomputer, wrapped the earth in bandwidth, and we're addicting people to sports gambling, distracted to the point where they can't focus and deep think and deep read. They just can't do it. You get
Sure.
young people, they're like, my brain is, I can't, 5 minutes in, I'm done. I just can't do it. So when I say we are sick, tired, lonely, stressed, distracted, addicted, all of these things are failures of leadership. So I'm going to define it just strictly through the lens that I believe deeply in. I believe that bad leaders are killing us and good leaders can make us healthy. But and the research is clear. That stress leads to increased heart disease, cancer, death early. Positive leadership, we have a course on practicing positive leadership, comes from University of Michigan Center for Positive Organizations. People that practice these principles, they live longer and they make more money and they have better relationships at home and work. They're happier, they cultivate more joy in their life. And they do that for the people that report to them. There are ways to start thinking about the exponential leverage that a leader can bring to bear. And I think a leader in the workplace, let's start there. And then we can move on to our social institution. Why are schools breaking down? Why is higher ed failing us? Why is religious affiliation hitting rock bottom? So the societal pillars are crumbling. I think great leaders can solve that problem. And I believe deeply in that. And I want to spend a whole bunch of years figuring out how to help people to be happier and healthier and build strong leaders that can each positively infect 10 or 20 people, that they go out and positively infect 10 or 20 people. And you create this exponential leverage that just happens. That's what I think great leadership can do.
Alan, that is the note we can end on. Sign me up for one. And our organization, we're trying to chip away at some of that, both internally as well as the work that we do in the marketplace, of course. But Alan, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today and all the important work that you do. Thank you.
Right on, Evan. Thanks for having me. I certainly appreciate you having me on the show and thinking enough of me to let me share with your audience.
Of course. And I'm sure they'll be grateful for it. Thanks so much, Alan.